Hello and welcome to another Roblox scripting tutorial. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to make spy glasses, or enemy vision goggles, or whatever you'd like to call them. This is going to be an easy video. If you're new to scripting, you'll learn some fundamentals of programming in Roblox, like creating functions, how to write variables and tables, how to loop some for loops to loop through stuff. It's an easy tutorial. It doesn't take very much at all, but first thing we're going to do in the workspace, I'm going to add a tool. I'm going to name this tool Spy Glasses, but you can name it whatever you'd like to. In the tool properties, I'm going to disable Can Be Dropped. I'm going to disable Requires Handle, and that's all we need to do for the tool. But now I'm going to add a local script. We can close this script right now. We don't need to worry about it. And I'm going to add a part and name it Handle. We turned off Requires Handle, but this still needs the handle. We're going to turn off Can Collide and Cast Shadow, make the transparency 1 like I already did, and that's all we need to do for the tool. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go up to the Avatar tab at the top of Studio. We're going to click Rig Builder. I'm going to select R15, but it doesn't matter. And I'm going to pick Block Avatar, not Skinned Avatar. I'm going to delete the body colors and the animate script. I'm going to add new body colors, because the default one will get your game banned. If you have any rig that doesn't have clothes, that's all one solid color, you will get your game taken down. But I'm just going to name this enemy. It doesn't have to have a number. But we're going to go up to the View tab next. We're going to click Command Bar, and in the Command Bar, we're going to type out this line of code. We're going to do workspace.enemy :add tag. We're going to give it the tag enemy. We're going to hit enter. It's going to run the code. We can close the command bar because now it has the tag. And I'm going to duplicate this guy a few times. Next thing we're going to do is I'm going to add a part, anchor it, rotate it, and I'm just going to make this into a wall. This is just to demonstrate what the tool will be able to do. So now that we have all our enemies and our walls, I'm going to create a folder in the workspace. I'm going to name this enemies, but this does not matter. You don't have to do this. I'm going to put all of the enemies in the folder, and that's it. Now in the tool, I'm going to add one more thing. I'm going to add a sound object. I'm going to make sure looped is set to false, which should be by default. I'm going to keep the volume 0.5. And the sound ID, I'm going to copy from over here on my second monitor. This sound ID is a sound that I made. It was a sound effect in FL Studio. If you would like to use it, the ID is 132-902-43505. I'm going to set the volume to 1. But now in the local script, we are ready to start coding. First of all, I'm just going to add this comment to break up the sections. We're going to need some variables. We're going to need 5 services. And before I forget, and before we start coding, there's one more thing we need to add. We're going to add it into the lighting. We're going to add a color correction effect. Now, the brightness, I'm going to keep it 0. Contrast, I'm going to set to 0.05. Saturation, I'm going to set to 0.1. And tint color, I'm going to set to 243, 246, and 255. So it makes a nice bluish tint. You can change this to whatever you'd like it to be. It's going to be used because we're going to set the contrast. Oh, nope, wrong one. We're just going to set the color back to white, and then we're going to set the saturation and the brightness to -1. The brightness is going to be -0.1, and it's going to make the whole game turn gray. So it has a nice effect. Now, first thing we're going to do is we're going to get the 5 services that I mentioned. We're going to get local players equals game:get service players. Then we're going to need local run service equals game:get service run service. Then we need lighting, so local lighting equals game:get service lighting. Then we need collection service, which will be able to return tables once you call a specific method on collection service that is full of objects with a specific tag, which you can see down here in the output. We added the tag enemy to our enemy, and when I duplicated it, all of these 9 enemies have that tag. So we're going to need local collection service equals game colon get service collection service. Then we need local tween service, so local tween service equals game colon get service tween service. Now we're going to need the player and the character, and that's going to be extremely easy since this is a local script. So we're going to do local player. I'm actually going to do local player equals players.local player. Then we're going to get local character. We're going to get the character equals local player dot character. I can't type today. Dot character or local player dot character added colon weight. And I've explained in previous videos, but I will explain it again if you're new to my channel or new to scripting. Every player object has a character added event, which will run when obviously the character is added, and the wait will wait for it to run. So it's going to yield right here until this runs, and because character added returns the character object, it's going to set the character variable to the player's character once it loads in. This is just a safety net because sometimes it isn't always loaded in, especially with players who might have bad internet connection or low-end devices, and they can't load into the game quickly. Next thing we're going to need is the tool, so local tool equals script.parent. Then we're going to get the sound, local sound equals tool, wait for child sound. We're going to do local camera equals workspace.current camera. Then I'm going to do local, we're going to get the color correction from the lighting, so local color correction equals lighting, wait for child color correction. Then we're going to do local is active equals false, and local debounce equals false. Then we're going to need local info. We're going to create a tween info equals tween info.new 0.7. You can change this to whatever you want. I would recommend 0.5 or 0.7. I'm going to choose 0.7. Then we're going to do comma enum.easing style. I'm going to choose circular. You can play around with these and find which one you like the most. And then comma enum.easing direction.out. After enum.easing direction, we're going to do comma 0, comma false, comma 0. Then we're going to do local render stepped, and then we're not going to set this to anything, but we're going to declare it as a connection. So we're going to do rbx script connection. Then we're going to create two tables. We're going to create local default correction equals a table, and local tool correction equals a table. In the default correction table, we're going to set brightness equals 0. We're just going to get all of these properties that we have from the color correction. So brightness equals 0. In tables, you can use a comma or a semicolon. I like to use a semicolon. Then we're going to do contrast equals 0.05, semicolon, saturation equals 0.1, semicolon, and tint color equals color 3 dot from RGB 243, 246, and 255. I'm going to copy all of this, and I'm going to drop a line in the tool correction table and paste it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to change these values. I'm going to set the brightness to negative 0.1, contrast is going to be 0, saturation is going to be negative 1, and tint color is going to be 255, 255, 255. So it's just pure white. And now we have finished declaring all of our variables for this tool. Now we're going to move on to writing the functions. So first function we need is one to create a highlight object. If you don't know what a highlight object is, it's a very cool and very cool looking object that exists in Roblox Studio. It'll highlight a part, or all of the parts in a model, whatever you parent it to. See, when I create the highlight object, it creates this highlight around the character. It's going away when I hover my mouse over it. The adorny is what you set it to. So if I set it to the left hand, it's only going to select the left hand. But if I set it to the model, it'll be the whole model. And we're going to use this object to our advantage in the tool by highlighting all of the enemies that collection service gets. First function we need is to create a highlight. So local function create highlight, and this is going to take one parameter, obj, which is short for object. This is going to be a lot of stuff, just a lot of setting properties. So local highlight, first of all, equals instance.new highlight. I'm going to copy the name highlight, drop a line, highlight.name equals enemy highlight. This is very important that you name it this. You can name it whatever you want, but you have to address it accordingly in the script. I'm actually going to put this in a variable. I'm going to create a new variable up here just above the isActive and debounds. Local highlight name equals, then I'm going to drag the highlight up. I'm going to set it there, and then I'm going to set highlight.name to highlight name. And we're going to do highlight. I'm going to move my mouse. Highlight.depth mode. This is very important. Equals enum dot highlight depth mode dot always on top. Next thing we're going to do is highlight dot enabled equals true. Highlight dot fill color equals color 3 dot from RGB 255,0,0. Highlight dot fill transparency equals 0.5. Highlight dot outline color, we're going to make white, so equals color 3 dot from RGB 255,255,255. And then we're going to do highlight dot outline transparency equals 0. Highlight dot adorny equals object, or obj, which is what the parameter is named. And we're going to do highlight dot parent equals obj. So we're done with this function. We can move on to our highlighting enemies function. So local function highlight enemies. This doesn't take any parameters. We're going to do render stepped equals run service dot render stepped :connect function. We don't need the delta time parameter. We're going to do local enemies equals collection service :get tagged enemy. So it's going to return a table with everything that is tagged with this string. So enemy. Then we're going to do for underscore comma enemy in enemies do. So we're going to loop through every single enemy that collection service got. And now we're going to do some magnitude checking. The reason we're going to check the distance between the player to the enemy is because Roblox, for performance reasons, has a highlight object limit. There can only be 31 active highlight objects at a time in the workspace, and this is for performance reasons. It states that on the documentation itself. To avoid running out of space for enemies if you have more than 31 in one area or in the map, we're going to check the distance between them. And if they're in a close enough range, then we will add the highlight. So what we're going to do is we're going to do local distance equals 2 parentheses. Inside of these parentheses, we're going to do character dot humanoid root part. That's a big word. Dot position minus enemy dot humanoid root part dot position. Outside of these parentheses, we're going to do dot magnitude, if I can spell it right. Next thing we're going to do is check this distance. I'm going to create another variable up here for this, just below the highlight name. I'm going to create local allowed I'm actually going to call it range. I'm going to make this 150. This is in studs. So we're going to do if distance is less than range, then, actually, less than or equal to range, then, if not enemy, find first child, highlight name, then we're going to create a highlight using that function, and we're going to pass the enemy as the parameter. Then outside of this if statement, in the distance if statement, we're going to type else, if enemy, find first child, highlight name, then enemy, find first child, highlight name, destroy. Then outside of here, we're going to do continue. So it's going to continue on to the next object in the for loop. And that's all we need for this function. So next thing we're going to do is local function unhighlight enemies. This also takes no parameters. We're going to get enemies again, like we did up here. We're going to do local enemies equals collection service, get tagged enemy, render stepped, disconnect, since we declared it as a script connection, and we connect it, so it is a connection. We connect it to run service.render stepped. So we do run service, disconnect, so it will no longer run. Render stepped equals nil, just to make sure it gets deleted. Then we're going to do for underscore comma enemy in enemies do. If enemy, find first child, highlight name, then enemy, find first child, highlight name, destroy. So it's the same thing we did up here. And we're going to do else continue. Now we need 2 more functions, and then the tool is done. We're going to need local function child added object, so obj. If is active, then create highlight. If is active, then create highlight. And then we're going to pass the object. Then we're going to do local function activated. This is going to take no parameters. If debounce, then return end. Then we're going to do if not is active, then sound play. So we're going to play the sound in the tool. Then we're going to do is active equals true, debounce equals true, tween service create. This is going to take a lot of stuff in the property table. We're going to do in these parentheses and create, we're going to do color correction, info, and then we're going to make a table. We're going to do brightness equals tool correction dot brightness, contrast equals tool correction dot contrast. Then we're going to do saturation equals tool correction dot saturation. Then we're going to do tint color, make sure that's capitalized. Tint color equals tool correction dot tint color. Then outside of this curly bracket and the parenthesis, we're going to type play. We have to highlight enemies, task.wait 8 sound play. So we're going to play it again and unhighlight enemies. Then we're going to copy this tween, and everywhere in this tween where it says tool correction, we're going to change it to default correction. So default correction.brightness, default correction.contrast, default correction.saturation, and default correction.tint color. Then we're going to drop 2 more lines. We're going to set is active equals false, task.wait 10. So we're going to wait a long amount of time so we could use the tool again, because you don't want them, I don't at least, want the player to be able to use this repeatedly back to back. I want them to have to wait a decent amount of time, like 10 seconds, to be able to have to use it again. Then we're going to set debounce equals false. And there's one last thing we need to do. We're going to do tool.activated, connect, activated. And this is going to make the whole tool work. And I don't use this function, so you can delete the child added function. And we are now done. I'm going to put the tool, the spyglasses, into starter pack, and I'm going to play. And now, if I go behind this wall and I use the tool, boom, you can see all of the enemies through the wall. And it will keep them highlighted, and it changes the color correction so it turns gray. If you want to fix this, that might actually be a little bit of a problem. If you don't want to have that, I'm going to try deleting the handle, and that should work. Yeah, delete the handle. That's why we turned off requires handle. That's gonna do it for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed and found this useful. I hope to see you in my next video. Goodbye.